sarve bhavantu sukhinah, sarve santu niramayah, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kaschid dukkha bhag bhavet. Purnam madah purnam idam purnat purnam udachyate purnasya purnam adaya purnam eva vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat. Jai Jai Sri Radhe, Jai Jai Sri Radhe, Jai Jai Sri Radheshyam. Nitai Gour.
Haribo.
So once one is committed to the 11 aspects of her spiritual identity, she should meditate on them with a determined heart. In the process of remembering, there is one beautiful consideration. One should constantly meditate on that which is befitting to her. If she meditates on things that are beyond her state of readiness, she will never attain perfection despite practicing for ages and ages. Well, that's a good verse. Apaner ajogo sharana jadi hai.
Did you translate this?
Yeah, this is my translation.
Oh, great.
But I actually Tripurari Maharaj asked me to send it to him just a day or two ago.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting, because of the identity of the Siddha Deha and that of the Sadhaka Deha. So usually the pronoun refers to the Sadhaka Deha, to the external Deha.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a bit like the same kind of thing that you have going on now with this gender dysphoria.
Yeah.
Outside I'm a male, but inside I'm a woman. That kind of thing.
Yes.
So now, but the thing is, of course, there were, and there have been in Gaudiya Vaishnavism people who are cross-dressers, and especially in your line there, you have Lalita Sakhi at
yes,
and not just her, but I mean everyone who follows at the in Navadvip at Samajbari.
The other day I was checking one troll thread of comments on Facebook. I am less and less visiting Facebook nowadays. I am very happy with that decision I did this year. But they were speaking about transgenders and about Lalita Sakhi. And was somebody speaking from the side of ISKCON. One ISKCONian devotee speaking about this and saying that this is the same thing, and calling all Babaji Sahajiyas and putting Lalita Sakhi, not understanding that there are different parivars, different families, different philosophy, and different approaches. So in terms of this, of course, I saw the post, I saw the picture, and all the trolls speaking nonsense, and I just left it to the side. Like, I will not reply anymore.
It's a certain stage of spiritual progress when you have to be the best, and you have to have the only right truth.
Yeah.
And so then you spend your time trying to find fault in other people.
Right.
Even Jesus says in the Bible there that before you go taking out the little splinters in the eye of other people, take out the big piece of wood that's in your own eye.
Yeah, exactly.
In other words, look at yourself first. Look in the mirror first before you go criticizing, because very often what we criticize in other people is what we are ourselves guilty of in some way.
Yeah, projection. Just to explain what I have been studying through the biographies of Lalita Sakhi, that the story is quite interesting. The level of bhakti of this Vaishnav was something else. And of course, there are some things even for many Babajis, or for Gauranga Mahaprabhu, or for Radharaman Charandas Dev, in some point of their practice, even if Gauranga, of course, is who is actually, we know, is not developing himself, he's the full power. But there was a stage of his own life that he cannot control himself anymore, and is just floating on Bhav. in Mahabhav. He's floating on Prem, and then all the external conditions are totally secondary. For instance, Nitai Chand, in some point, he just was, he walk naked, or he get naked to some places, and his own devotees must to say, hey, Nitai, you are naked, put some clothes, there are some important people, things like this. Or he will not eat any prasad, any offering, with exception if somebody especially give to the mouth of him, like very static state of consciousness. And in this case, we can speak also about Lalita Sakhi in the way that how she developed even her own guru, or his own guru, Radharaman Charan Dasdeva. He didn't understood him in the beginning. He was thinking that he's joking or he's crazy. How he can get such a higher stage of bhav, even if Radharaman was not like showing this kind of static love. And then, of course, everything developed on that way. And there get at a moment that you don't care anymore about social conditionments. Like you have to be like this, devotees must to shave their head or this or that. She and she was not choosing to have her own sari or cloth. It was her own guru say, you are in this stage. From here, you always meditate in your only spiritual svarup, your spiritual body. And Radharaman gave her, this is your clothes, you dress like this, and you every day only think in your svarup, in spiritual golok. No anymore in sadaka deha, you are a man, no. Because this is your reality. You realize all this already. So you go like this from here and on. And this is the main point. It's not like he was feeling, oh, I would like to be like that, and I start dressing like in this case, I can use the word like a sahajiya, and dancing and asking money after for the show, in the streets. This is totally different story with Lalita Sakhi. And in that way, I think it's super. Indeed, I am translating her biography, and I will put it first in Spanish, because I want that the Spanish community of devotees will also understand that this is possible. It's not only 5,000 years ago some devotees can get such a high level that they lost all the external rules and regulation, but this was happening quite like in these times, And of course, in front of a society, absolutely, men and women are stupid, like we have been growing in the Western philosophy with the books. The women are less and earth 8 times more, have more lusty than men, and all this kind of nonsense. Of course, if one devotee looks like he is going in his female energy, her Shakti is totally powerful. Inside is the goddess living in Radharani. Of course, it looks quite strange, but going through the biography and the story behind her, and if it's possible to read her own text, songs, we understand that these devotees are in another level. We cannot compare with this kind of nowadays nonsense of dressing like a
Well,
woman.
anyone who's going to, if someone achieves status, and those imitators will be looking to achieve the same kind of status.
Mm-hmm.
So you have, like in India, is especially rich in people doing strange things and being gurus at the same time.
Yeah, definitely.
It's not a far-fetched thing. You have very strange gurus in India.
Yes, that's true. That's true. It's surprising, but it's very interesting, to visit India and to see this other side. To go outside the 4 walls of your ashram, your mandir, from which mission you belong.
Well, we have what happened with ISKCON, and this is really starting with Bhaktivinoda Thakur. If you understand the history of what's happened since the British came to India. The British were there for 200 years, if not more, because they were there, pretty much 200 years. They were longer than that in Bengal, but they were ruling in Bengal for 190 years.
Mm-hmm.
So during that time, they brought a lot of changes. And it was not Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Bhaktivinoda Thakur was one person amongst many. And there's one gentleman who's, well, I mean, it was going on since earlier than that, because you had the Brahmo Samaj, and you have Ram Mohan Rai, and then you have the Tagores, and you have Bankim Chatterjee, and you have all these you have all Keshav Chandra Sen, all these particular figures. They were all dealing with the problem of, what do we do as Bengali people who are now being, ruled by this technologically superior culture. And this technological superiority, this is something that, we can't deal with these people. We don't have the technological know-how, to compete with them, to let's say, to have the same equal weapons, let's say, so you think of, to be able to face them in battle, and so on. So, they capitulated, and they thought, for the most part, in the 19th century, the Indian people were thinking, how do we accrue, how do we get this kind of knowledge for ourselves? So they were complicit, let's say, in the colonialization process. So the colonialization process means that, it becomes especially prominent, because I'll tell you that in the 19th century, you have Freud coming along at the beginning of the 20th century, at the end of the 19th century. So now Freud, that's Bhaktivinoda Thakur, is pre-Freud. But after Freud, of course, then the Western people were starting to critique Hindu society, not from the Christian point of view. Like in the 19th century, it had all been Christians who were criticizing Hinduism, and the pagan activity and so forth. But then in the in the middle of the 20th century and you start to get these critiques from a Freudian point of view, you had also from the Marxist point of view, the critiques of Indian society, what kind of society was there, and why it wasn't as great as European society. That was the basic idea.
Yes.
That Europeans are more successful because, well, what is it? Is it because of their religion? Is it because of their philosophy? What exactly? Why are Western people so great and Indian people so miserable? This kind of thing. So this is the kind of question you have to answer.
Yeah.
So, or this is the kind of question they were looking to answer, right? So we're now the best in the world. We're the strongest in the world. We're the universal masters. Why are we so great?
Yeah. In your opinion, Jagadananda, what makes that big difference? Since we read in the Vedas or in the Puranas, mainly in Bhagavatam, the story of Bharat, how great it was, but nowadays it's a total different story. So what do you think happened? What happened there?
Well, I'm not sure, because, first of all, when you're talking what kind of society was Yudhishthira and Ramachandra, what kind of society were they living in? What was the social order? And so we think, in terms of the Varnashram Dharma, and it's really Varnashram Dharma is a little bit difficult to pin down and to actually know what is meant by Varnashram Dharma, either in the past or in the present or in the future. But basically, the idea that there was but it was still an agricultural society.
Yes.
And at best, it was feudal. Right? So if you think even at the 19th, when the British came to India, for instance, and the same thing with the Muslims, it was a feudal society. So the king at the top is just basically taxing the landowners. It's like a scheme for taking money from the bottom up to the top. And so you have the king at the top, and then you have his ministers and so on, and then they have the local governors, and then they have the local landowners who own own a village. Like I have a village with 22 serfs, and it was exactly the same, the feudal system. So when the British came, they just took over the system, and they kind of they were the ones who took all the tax money. That's all. So that was based. So, but the thing is that the British had other kinds of ideas, because partly they were also. So I mean, so the point I was trying to make is that what kind of society we're talking, how glorious it was then, but we don't really know, do we? We don't have any statistics. We don't know what their grain production was, or how many people were starving to death, or how many people were, and such things like that. And exactly, people were very, very rich. But if you, let's say, for instance, if I came to to an African village, and I came to that, and you see the king, and the king has the king of the tribe. He's got a wooden hut, a grass hut like everybody else, right? It's just a bigger grass hut or a bigger tent, and so and maybe he has a few nice things in there that nobody else has, and so that's considered his wealth. But I mean, in terms of modern society, what we think of as wealth today, it is no comparison.
Yes.
Right? So I can describe it and say, oh, how wealthy he was. But then if I saw it from, just like I have a story, a little silly story. Mm-hmm. But one day I was listening to the radio, and I heard a lady talking about apples, and saying how the uniculture of apples has resulted that there are 3 or 4 kinds of apples that are sold everywhere, and all these other breeds of apples are being just they've been abandoned, and so those particular breeds have been lost. And so she was building. She had a place where she was growing trees with all these different apples. So I just happened. This was in Únete, a city in Canada. So then one day I went to that. I was living in that town.
This is not anything about conspiration or nothing. This is art that many photographers do, and anybody with a good camera can do this picture. Do you see the image now?
Yeah.
These are called star trails, right? This picture is normally a 24-hour picture. They start at 0 point and end in 0 point next day. So they see the rotation of the stars, planets, everything in a circle, perfect circle. And this is not a special picture because I can open any picture. Of course, there are, for everything, there are explanation and a B-side explanation. Every picture shows the same, and if you have a good camera, you can do this.
Yeah, but isn't that attributable to the turning of the earth?
No, the turning of the earth, of course. But this shows that everything is rotating in a perfect circle on top of us. What is not possible if the earth is spinning, rotating around the sun. So all the image that we will have will be a chaotic spiral on top of us, like thousands of spirals as lights are on top, but they are all perfect lines. Top of this, I want to show to all of you 2 pictures that I did as a screenshot from the live stream of NASA 2 years ago of the land rover. This supposed to be Mars. Now we will take a few seconds to see this picture. Please observe with an open mind. As you can see, there are some strange structures that does not look like natural. If you can see, these structures looks like buildings, houses, or even pyramids. Now, of course, there are not pyramids as far as we know in Mars, because there are no civilization. But what about the picture on a real context? Let's change the color. Now, as you see the color of the surface, this reminds you a desert in every place on the world. Mainly, these pictures. This news here from Chile reads La Tercera is one of the most popular and important newspapers in the whole country. Reads, NASA is testing in the Atacama Desert how the rover can detect life in Mars. So this is not crazy theory, this is real. They are doing it there. So this, for me, this opened the first thing that then I start studying why this is happening. What is the explanation, scientific explanation on this topic? So what we see here is there is a vortex, is a central point on this image, and every single image of star trails have a central point. Is this what the Buddhist and the ancient culture speak about Meru, Mount Meru? Maybe Mount Meru is not a physical thing as we expect. Maybe it's an energetic point, and exactly is the center of the galaxy, as we can see in this picture.
Well, I would imagine this is Dhruva, it's not North Star here.
Yes, in the center is there. Yeah.
So, I mean, to some extent, yes, I could say that you're perfectly right. That's what they would have seen, and that's what they would could very well have interpreted things in the way that they did. I don't, I mean, of course, I've got nothing against people trying to understand what the writers of the Puranas were thinking when they saw this, and to understand, you'd have to study Vedic astrology and you have to understand all these things, and these are not things that I know very well, so I'm not going to really pronounce about them. But my tendency is to say that to accept the Drik-Siddha, as they say, right? To say what is the Drik-Siddha and the Shastra Siddha. In astrology, in Indian astrology, it's do you accept the Shastric view? Where are the stars right now? Which house are we in right now? Mm-hmm. And you can either do it by looking at the sky and saying it, or you can look at the scriptures, and the scriptures are the ephemeris and so on, is telling you where it's supposed to be. But it might not be there. But so sometimes there's a disagreement between the two. And then when there's a disagreement between the two, who do you accept as authority? So most of the traditional astrologers, they were all saying that you take the Shastriya, that's the one. And other astrologers were saying that we get better results with the Drik-Siddha. But when we use the actual physical, measurable distances and so on and so forth, that the results we get when we make our charts, our astrological charts, that they're more accurate. Uh-huh. So now who are you going to believe, right? So, I mean, these are kinds of questions. So another point, so my point is really that we have to look for, it's really, this is a sub-process. I mean, this is something I was interested in when I was in university. I should have some water. But anyhow, that I was looking a lot at 19th century, 20th century philosophers, Christian theologians. Mm-hmm. And as Western science made progress in the 19th century especially, you had all these different thinkers who came along and took modern scientific information and used it to promote the atheistic platform, right? Like Marx. Marx is one of the biggest atheists, right? And yes. And Freud might have been a big, Freud was also a big atheist, but they're both, one came from the point of view of sociology and economics, and the other one came from the point of view of psychology. In both cases, they reduced God to a kind of a psychological or sociological utility, right?
Oh, yes.
There's a very famous saying that religion, that for in the Roman, I think it was Gibbon who says this, that in the Roman Empire, the ordinary people believed that all the gods were true. And the philosophers believed that none of the gods were true. And the magistrates, in other words, the bureaucrats and the rulers, they thought that all the gods were useful. So you have whether are they true or not true, but true or not, are they useful? Right? Can you if I promote belief, so just like now you're having all these gods are being presented to humanity, right? The god now of transsexuality, transgenderism, right? Or the god of homosexual pride, right? Gay pride is another false god, another idol that's being presented, right? So everyone, the many gods that are there. So finding the one underlying truth that is not ephemeral, that is not a false god. That's what it's about. in Christianity, they were, they had to face this. I mean, the Catholic Church, and they had the history of the Catholic Church in the 19th century, American Protestantism, and up to the present day, the debate goes on. But one of the weak spots is fundamentalism. The idea, belief in the inviolability, what they call sola scriptura in Protestantism.
Mm-hmm.
One of Martin Luther's things. Sola scriptura, that scripture is the only praman. This is in Protestant, because the difference between Protestantism and Catholicism was that the Catholicism had the tradition and the popes, they had the right to interpret Shastra, interpret their scriptures in time and place, according to time and place, and so that's why the Catholic Church has some kind of an evolutionary continuity, but the Protestants have a problem that they're cut off from any kind of authority, and so everybody is his own authority, and you have to make your own connection with God. So it's in a way it's a little bit similar to what happened with the Gaudiya Math and traditional Gaudiya Vaishnavism.
In which sense to
same
go
thing.
deeper?
Well, first of all, they reject the authority, right? So they say that your tradition doesn't count. Your Nityananda Vangsha doesn't matter. You have your own disciplic succession. It doesn't matter. That's not what counts. What really counts is that do you understand what Rupa Goswami was saying, or what the Bhagavatam says? Do you understand the scripture? Do you understand what the tattva is? Do you understand? So mainly it's going back to the 6 Goswamis that you accept the authority of the 6 Goswamis. What do the Goswamis know? When I was going through this was way back, let's say 1980 or something like this. So I'd left ISKCON already, and I was in Jagannath Puri, so maybe 1981 or whatever around then. I hadn't been to Jagannath Puri. I wanted to go to Jagannath Puri, so I went there. And I ran into, I didn't go, I went looking for him, Harinam Vrata Brahmachari. I don't know if you know him. Jagadbandhu Sundar.
Yes. Okay, now I did the connection.
They have a disciplic succession now.
Yes.
And they believe that Jagadbandhu Sundar was, the incarnation of Chaitanya Nitai, the combined form of Chaitanya and Nitai is Jagadbandhu.
Yes.
And this Jagadbandhu has a very strange life, but his followers, they've made a sampradaya. Now there are thousands of people.
It's incredible, I have to say. Reading about him is absolutely incredible. Now, I don't belong on that side, but it's totally incredible. Like Ramdas Baba was a big follower of him beginning, before meeting Radharaman Charandastev. Yeah, Jagadbandhu is incredible. But yes, it's a strange theory anyways.
Anyhow, so the reason that Jagadbandhu's disciplic succession has continued to the present day is mostly because of Mahanamvrata Brahmachari. So Mahanamvrata Brahmachari was kind of famous because in the 1930s, he went from India. He went to Chicago, and he did a PhD at the University of Chicago, and he also spoke in Chicago again, just like Vivekananda. He spoke at this World Forum of Religions, right? And so of course, it's very funny because he's from East Bengal, and so his Bengali pronunciation is actually almost incomprehensible to someone from the West Bengal area, But at any rate, but his English was good, right? He spent all those years in Chicago, and he wrote his PhD thesis in English about Jiva Goswami. So his PhD thesis was called it's called Vaishnava Vedanta. Vaishnava Vedanta. Right? So he's talking about. So he's putting in all kinds of Jagadbandhu stuff in there. But at any rate, one place in that book, I read that book, and in one place he says there that Jiva Goswami was writing in accordance with the scientific knowledge of his time, but that if Jiva Goswami lived today, he would be able to produce the same philosophy in terms of the modern scientific knowledge. So I wanted to challenge him on that. I wanted to talk to him about that. And so I went and spoke to him. and said, well, how can you say this, right? What's the, you know? And so, but he, in the end, he convinced me that it was that the philosophy of Gaudiya Vaishnavism, the ritual, the devotion, all these things could be separated from the particular view of scientific reality that was current at that time. So he separated the two. He made it possible that you could have the one without the other. I don't know if that's, don't know if I'm completely 100% sold on that idea. But nowadays, of course, you have people who are the scientific atheists, you know, people like, you know, Dawkins. Richard Dawkins is a good one to know. Christopher Hitchens was one. And you know, Sam Harris is another one. They have a whole bunch of these people who, you know, quite you know, mostly American, mostly Jewish.
Yes.
But scientists who are saying that, you know, God doesn't, that not only is God false, but it's also a problem for human society, that we need to get rid of God in order to be able to for human beings to actually become properly civilized.
And somehow it makes sense, from the point that thinking that no, all the path leads to Rome. They always say in Spanish, todos los caminos conducen a Roma. Like, all the ways, every way lead to Rome. But I don't believe that. So on that sense, I really
that's a Vedic position, right? It says that all the rivers flow into the sea. So in the same way, all your prayers ultimately flow to Krishna.
Yeah, he say that in Bhagavad Gita. Fine, in the end, I am the ultimate beneficiary.
Destination.
Yes, destination. Anyways, what I am trying to point here is that you can pray. For example, I have philosophy or religion, tribal religion, maybe bring from family, from the tribe, race, culture, whatever, and I can see God as some character, let's say. Let's put the thing clear, like some kid who born in Haiti. Yes? Do you know Haiti, this Iceland? This Haiti? Or Haiti is a small island. They speak French and they practice the voodoo. It's in South America. And this kid will be born in
Haiti.
Okay. Haiti. Yes. So this kid who is born in that place, he will grow up thinking that his God is this character, this and that. He will do prayers, everything, and he will keep his tribal faith, to say. Yeah. But can we say that that spirit is really God, or is something else? To say, going back to what you were talking about a bit some minutes ago about Rome and the empire, the God they create for Christians, or the God they adopt, was a God who was basically serving to the empire and serving for the economy.
Well, yeah. Okay.
In that sense, I understand too that is a problem.
All right. So now the thing is that the idea is again the same as is something that is discovered. Is that new, or is it the old thing that is being seen in closer light? So there is a God phenomenon, let's say a psychological phenomenon known as God, that exists within the minds of people, and it serves a particular function. It's an archetype. And that archetype is universal amongst human beings. So now the whole point is, so now what is that functioning archetype is going to be revealed to you, let's say, to the extent that you're equipped to handle it. So like, for instance, if you take this is all in 19th century discussion, you know, when people were really starting to get information, right? Because before the 19th century was when really the British expanded their empire and went to every corner of the planet, right? You had discovered all the different kinds of people, and then you had the researchers and And many of them were priests or preachers who wanted to convert the primitive tribal people to Christianity, and so they would go, but they would get information about the habits and the beliefs of the people that they were among. So then in the 19th century, for the first time, you're getting this huge amount of information is coming in about the different kinds of religion that are everywhere present in the world. And now, and so the people are starting to look at that information and compare that information and so on. So now people were, one of the things that they were trying to explain was, how did religion begin in human society, right? The idea that human beings at one time were not conscious entities in the evolutionary pattern, that they were previously monkeys or whatever, it was two apes, and that gradually somewhere along the line something snapped and they became self-aware, and they became conscious, and they were able to think about things like, who am I, why am I here, and so on.
Just like this, like out of nothing, a dolphin jumped to earth and started walking and started writing books.
Well, I mean, there was. I was very impressed by Freud's book, Totem and Taboo. I was just thinking about this yesterday.
Yes.
There's a book. You've read that book, Totem and Taboo?
Yes, long ago.
So his idea there is that the sons grouped together to kill the father, because the father was dominating all the women. Right. So the sons, they wanted to have a little go at it themselves, and so they were, you had in this. If you see in India, you see the monkeys the way they are. You should observe the monkeys in Vrindavan. It's very, 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 very educational.
I have been doing enough.
You can't live in India. You can't live in Vrindavan without observing the monkeys.
Yeah, you have to learn.
You have the daddy monkey, and then you have the other young males. So in the other young males, often you see them standing by themselves, because they're not. And I remember, sometimes you see the father monkey, the big boss, getting rid of one of the younger ones. The younger one has challenged him, and so the young one has challenged him, and he gets, but as long as he's bigger and stronger, the younger one won't get it through.
Yes, exactly.
So what Freud said was that one time all the young ones, they got together and they killed the father. And so this is a very traumatic thing, because in the instinctive situation, of course, the respect for the father, the respect for the boss, somehow or another, it's a part of the instinctive nature of the tribal system, right? So of the group so he says that when they finally got fed up with him and they overthrew him, then they felt guilt, right? They felt they'd gone against Dharma, right? They'd broken the rule. They'd gone against the law of God, right? And so that point for him, that's when consciousness comes into humanity.
Interesting.
So that's what they call it. And so then what happens after that is that you have religion. The dead father becomes projected into as a totem, usually associated with, and so on and so forth. I mean, it's a whole complex description, but he seemed to have some kernel of insight there. Of course, he's been totally debunked, and nobody believes that it's a true story. Sure, but it had what you call mythical potency. It had mythical. A lot of people believed it.
Yes, definitely, and it represents quite well the society, how it works.
Yeah, not only because I mean, for Freud, incest is the biggest taboo, right? So you can't, you're not supposed to marry your sister or have sex with your mother.
Yes.
Right, those things. So that's why for Freud the Oedipus complex was so important, because in that's where the child competition between the son and the father, that's where it reaches where the son kills the father.
Right.
Oedipus. So he was projecting Oedipus complex onto the original.
When I had when I was living in Australia, I discovered something super interesting about this topic, about this taboo, incest. And it happens that the tribes in Australia, Normally, people think the Australian Aboriginals is one tribe in all Australia, but happens that there are more than 200 clans at this time. Each of them has different dialect and cosmovision. The dream time is different for each of them. They have different names and different philosophies to say, mythologies. But what I discovered that was truly, truly incredible to see is that all of them, the only thing that they really share as tribes is the what they call the skin names. Have you heard about this?
The what?
Skin names. Skin names.
No, I don't know that.
Happens that they have a system, social system, to give a name to each of the persons who belong to the tribe, and the names are given by bloodline. And what they are looking that you will never met with the same bloodline of your family. Same that what Freud is talking here, but for them there was no taboo because it's a total different culture. But the explanation of this one, I ask, why is this tradition? And they say because when you mix human genetics, yeah, same families, many problems came there, like malformation, mental problems, etc. And this is one of the biggest taboos, by the way, in Scandinavia. These countries, for example, Iceland, that is a super developed country, excellent country for living, but they have a big problem. There is not many people and not many different genetics. So they have been developing an application where you can find, if you are in a nightclub or in a bar, for example, young guys go for chicks to say, they can check in the application from which line they are, that they are not your own family, because this create problems, not because of taboo, but out of genetics.
Well, the point was that the taboo comes from something. So you know, why do you have why is the taboo there? So the taboo is there might be some psychological reason, but it's also there might be some real physiological truth behind it as well.
Yes, quite possible.
I mean, in India, it's not considered such a big thing, but I've heard that there are certain Indians, jatis, especially Brahmins, where it's called exogamy, meaning that you're marrying outside of your, or endogamy and exogamy. But anyway, the idea is that because they're inbred, that they actually do have a lot of problem of mental disorder, mental defect,
yes,
and physical defects. So it's not pretty sight apparently that you have a lot of mentally, insufficient.
Yeah. This
but
also
anyway,
we're
off subject here. I don't know.
Yes, but the last parenthesis on this topic. Also, it is a good example of this kind of religious taboos, but that are based on historical fact that something happened. Is the thing that the Muslims or Jews don't eat pork.
Yeah, well, that's again, there may well have been a good reason for that, some disease or whatever.
Yeah.
But anyway, for Muslims, it's another question, because for Muslims, they just carried it on from the Jews.
Yeah. Anyways, we have been going all the way out of the original topic.
Yeah, well, I can just say where that previous subject was going, though. The question is, and it's still a question that we have to face. I'm saying that even though in the 19th century you had Indians who were, also examining their belief system and critiquing their own belief system, and you have people like Bhaktivinoda Thakur, who's attempting to defend Vaishnavism in the context of, and not only just in the context of, but to kind of argue that it's a superior theology to Christianity and to Islam. So but he was in a minority, and still to this day, Bhaktivinoda Thakur is not really recognized as a Bengali hero or as an Indian hero. It's only maybe some, now that Hinduism is getting a bit of energy back. You know, the Bhaktivedanta Swami anyway is getting some kind of positive press from the Hindu right. But otherwise, you know, these, you know, the most of the ideas that were present in for defending Hinduism, they were all quite different from Vaishnavism. But anyway, that was the point, was that Indian society was going through the questions, but not on quite the same level as in Europe and America. So in Europe and America, you have a lot, you know, you have all these different atheistic philosophers who are coming along, and they're all challenging religion, and religion has to respond somehow. They have to come up with some answers for the proposals that have been given by these atheistic scientists and so on, to prove that they're, you know, to substantiate the philosophy of religion. So even now today, you can look at some of that stuff going on. I mean, there's still many of these debates are available on YouTube now, you know, where these religious people are debating against atheists, and mostly it's these scientific atheists, and for the most part, they're getting clobbered, you know. for the most part, they really lose badly, you know. You know, you have to take someone like Jordan Peterson is more of a, you know, it takes a more psychological approach, and that's I was kind of pleased with that, because that's more or less where I was standing before also, that I was saying, okay, we have to look at this from a psychological approach instead of from a historical point of view, because historical point of view is not going to help us very much. It's not going to help us, because even if it's true or not, or if it's true or not true, what difference does that really make? So people, you know, I mean, for instance, can you say that everything that's said about Krishna in the Bhagavatam, that it's all true, that it actually happened? And if there's a difference between Vishnu Purana and Harivangsha and Bhagavatam, what do you do with that information? What do you do with the contradictions? That's like, this is the whole thing with Chaitanya Lila also. The Chaitanya Lila, you have contradiction. Chaitanya Bhagavat, Chaitanya Manga, Chaitanya Charitamrita. They all, each one of them is, you know, making generally the same things might be said, but at the same time, a lot of details are different.
Yeah, it's very difficult to sometimes to take transcendental knowledge or this philosophy of Granta and to try to put inside a contemporary box. I think the box doesn't fit. It's not the problem of the books of Shastra. It's that the box that we are thinking in, it doesn't fit. It's too small. This is too big. We want to see something like a timeline that is linear timeline. Past is here in the right, in the left, and future is in the right side. When time is circle, it's a circle. It's not a line. When the truth and tattva is not one thing, it's eternity. Then it's not only one point. You know, we think we go to Rome, we take the plane here, and we land there. But for spiritual approach, there is an infinite universe of reality. It's not 2 + 2 4 anymore. This is only working here in material world. Transcendental is not like that. So of course we are religious people to say is made to lose with atheists, because atheist people is using science that, by the way, is created by themselves, supported by themselves, and they let out everything that's contradiction to themselves. And there is a big money behind this. So of course this debate is this fighting. All the spiritual religious people will lose because they have nothing on their side more than faith. You know, so this is a
no, they have a lot more than that. They have a lot more than that, because what you can see today, that now we've had, let's say, a couple of 100 years of increasingly strong atheism, and you see that, for instance, in where I live here in Canada, in Quebec, it really happened after the Second World War. So then suddenly you had what they called here the Quiet Revolution, and the Catholic Church was completely abandoned. Now you have almost nobody believes in the Catholic Church anymore. Before, the Catholic Church was, 99% of the French Canadians were strong believers. It was important for the family. It was important for society. And now they don't have that. So what's replacing it? Pornography,
Yeah,
prostitution.
that's the problem, and that
And
exactly looks like almost like it's some kind of agenda. Take the people out and then put all the trash on top.
well, the destruction of the family, right? So
Yes.
the family, feminism, destruction of the family,
Yeah, absolutely.
homosexuality, that
Yes.
that sexual pleasure is the like what in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna also says that sexual pleasure is the only purpose of creation.
Yes.
So I mean, this kind of thing is that you have a society where nobody is happy.
Yeah.
And people have riches and so on. They're living in comfortable houses, but I suppose that they think that they're. I was with my brother-in-law is a big scientist.
Mm-hmm.
He's now Professor Emeritus, but he was he's a big scientist, very strong atheist also.
Uh-huh.
And my brother is an accountant.
Uh-huh.
Right? So my brother is an accountant. So my brother is, he's done well for himself. So he's an accountant. So one day that they were having an argument. I heard about it later. I didn't, they told me. So my brother-in-law, the scientist, he's the one who told me about it. He said that my brother had said that accountants do more good in the world than the scientists. And so my scientist brother-in-law, he was so indignant. What about the people who are inventing cure for disease and and he was going on and on
or creating the disease for curing later. Yeah.
Yeah, he says, what do the accountants do? The accountants. Anyway, that's the point from that point of view. People are obviously thinking that the scientists are the new priesthood, right? They're the Brahmins, and so what they say is what they say goes. They're the ones who decide, and yad acharati sreshtas tad tadevetaro jana sayat pramanam kurute lokas tad anuvartate. So people want to believe that you have the high priests or the scientists. So if they say take the vaccine, you have to take the vaccine. You have to believe. You have to believe in them. So I think humanity, they have that need to believe, and it's just that we have replaced one set of dogmas for another.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I speak many times with people who is atheist or they do believe that they believe in science, and many times they say yes, but what I think, when sometimes some kind of hot debate, and sometimes this point is always coming, and they say yes, but what I do believe is science proof. They are proof of what I am talking about. And I say,
but you can't prove.
You prove it?
Well, they're always saying that you have to prove the existence of God.
Yeah.
And so you can say say you have to prove the non-existence of God.
Yeah.
I say existence itself. How do you account for existence? Why does something exist and not nothing? But why am I here? Why are we talking? How is it that we come here and talk about this subject? What made that possible?
But there are interesting things. For example, in the Bhagavata Puran, where they explain the atomic theory, the creation of all the bodies in the universe. All the shapes are created of these small particles. Is what the science call atoms, right? Atoms. And also there is the Big Bang, the Mahavishnu creation, the big crunch of the quantum scientifics is the dance of Shiva in the end, when everything is destroyed and go back to the original point. Is quite similar.
Okay, well, it's two different ways they maybe of saying the same thing, but of course the difference is that the mathematics is not there. You don't have the mathematics. You don't have any mathematical formulas to explain, to calculate. The formulae that are given are very rudimentary, and often they're based on incorrect information, like the distance of the sun and the distance of the moon and so on.
Yeah. The mathematical formula, yes, there.
You can say, all right, that this is this is a way of saying that same, giving the same idea. And of course, like the Hindus are often defending. They say, look, in our Shastras, we have the universe has been going on for millions and millions of years, and so on and so forth. And the Christian or the Jewish Bible has the world was created 5,000 years ago or 6,000 years ago. So there's the two things. It seems that Hinduism is closer to a more scientific view of creation than the Christian.
Yeah.
But that's a kind of a silly argument to have, because you say that it's not the same. It's not going to be the same as a mathematically based scientific position.
Yeah, definitely will not be even closer. But if I explain that black color is a mix of this percentage of this color, and we get black, and I give you all a full book of why is black, how to make black, and other person will come and say, okay, mix all the color together and you will get black color. The process may be different and seems more professional explanation on how to do black color, but basically you get black color. This is the main point. I guess in the Puranas are quite simple and explaining very straightforward what are the things basically to know where we are standing here in the universe. So if they say that everything comes from one particular point of consciousness and everything will go back to the same point, it's the same that science is speaking, just different words, but the point is the same. Even I have all the mathematics, I can put all the mathematics together, I cannot create a universe. So
well, you're quite correct, and the idea is that this is what when we get back to the whole idea of what I was saying about Mahanam Vrata Brahmachari telling me that if Jiva Goswami had the science of today, that he would still be able to come up with the same philosophy, let's say, the same theology. So now the question is, but now we are actually living in the 21st century, and we actually have to deal with those people, and we have to be able to present. Now, for the most part, like devotees have not really been in the fight at all, right? The devotees are not there. As a matter of fact, devotees mostly seem to take extreme positions, like believing in hollow earth or believing in flat earth.
Absolutely.
And, so this kind of thing, they seem to favor kind of conspiratorial views. And Prabhupada promoted that, saying that we can't go to the moon and that the moon landing was faked and stuff like that. Well, it seems to me to be a losing game. It's going to be a losing game. I mean, what the favorable things for conservatives right now? What the strength of conservative? Basically, Bhakti is a conservative movement, right? We're very conservative. We believe in the old stuff. We believe in the old way of life. Now, basically, the old way of life, what are those things? For instance, now we're going to get to some of the basic questions that are troubling people today, about gender and about, what is the role of men and women, and do we have families anymore? Are we supposed to have families? Are we supposed to, how are human beings supposed to live together? Is it all just about more money, more money, more money? How are we going to save the human race from this certain, what seems to be a very quick race into the gouffre, abyss, the abyss.
Mm-hmm. I think everybody do believe in family, honestly, and it's by media and by all the system is very hard push all this idea about no family and destroying everything out of politics, culture, music, and all the kind of social media brainwashed. But honestly, I cannot find one person who don't believe that family is a value and we should keep it on like this way.
Maybe some people can give some questions in the comments, and then we'll see what happens from that.
Yes. Let's invite everyone who is watching this interview and this conversation to write questions about Gaudiya Vaishnavism, about philosophy, about spiritual life, etc. Our Jagadananda does. He have been walking all through the different parivars and started from ISKCON and before from Christianity. So he knows quite a lot. That's why I am pushing always to him to come here and to speak with us and to share his knowledge. So, Jagadananda, thank you very much for your time, for being here, and I am very pleased to have you aboard.
Only thing is, I'm afraid that we don't have a. I always end my classes with a couple of verses.
Oh, do it, please, please. I have been in your classes of Sanskrit, so please go ahead.
Yeah, well, I should advertise my class in Sanskrit.
Do it.
If people who want to, they can come in October, but they have to see the Jiva website.
Jiva.org is the website. You can find there the Sanskrit classes with Jagadananda Das.
That's right. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinah Sarve Santu Niramaya Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kaschid Dukkha Bhag Bhavet Purnam Madah Purnam Idam Purnat Purnam Udachyate Purnasya Purnam Adaya Purnam Eva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat. Jai Jai Sri Radhe. Jai Jai Sri Radhe. Jai Jai Sri Radheshyam. Nitai Gour.
Hari Gour.